implement this now, because as you are growing in your leadership, you also need to recognize that the area that you are going to needs to be you operating in your zone of genius. It needs to be you operating at your highest level. And if you cannot operate well in that area, then you are going to really struggle. You are going to really struggle to be successful. You are going to really struggle to scale and to grow if you don't have the capacity right now.
Welcome to the Kingdom Minded Mompreneur, where we, Becky
and Monique, your new biz besties, both busy moms just like you.
We're here to talk all things network marketing, mom life, and how to truly live out your calling. We'll be dropping 2 episodes each week to help you, the busy mompreneur, know the exact strategies to build both your business and your home. You'll hear each week from one of the top network marketers on their best tips for what's led to their success and what's working now.
We know that you're here because you are called to something more. You have a desire to succeed in both your business and at home, and we are going to teach you how. If you love what you hear here on the podcast and want to be one of our success stories, join us inside our community, the Kingdom Minded Mompreneur, where we provide a daily social media action plan, additional resources, kingdom coaching, and more. Click the show notes for the link to join. So let's get into the episode.
Hello, welcome back to the Kingdom Minded Mompreneur podcast. Today, you get a solo episode from me, Monique Scripp, and we're going to be talking about leadership boundaries. All right, so this is going to be a very practical conversation. If you are a leader and you struggle with boundaries, or maybe you feel like you are doing a pretty good job, but there's still some areas that you can really lean in and say, how can I improve in boundary setting? How can you improve in getting really clear on your own boundaries? We have found that for our clients, this is something that comes up a lot. And whether you recognize it or maybe you just go about your day and then you realize, all right, I need to be better about boundary setting, or something happens where you get burned or you get taken advantage of, or you're just worn out and you realize I need to learn how to set better boundaries. So here are some ways that you can know if this is an area that you need to improve in your life. So the first way is you feel overwhelmed. So if you have told yourself, I feel overwhelmed, there are not enough hours in the day, then that is an indication that you need to set boundaries. Another one is you are exhausted. If you feel like you are tired all the time, you're exhausted, you're mentally drained, that's a recognition that you need to set boundaries. Maybe you say yes when you want to say no. Has that ever happened to you where you're like, somebody asks something of you, and in your head you're thinking, I really need to say no to this, or I don't need to take on this additional commitment, but somehow you say yes. Somehow yes comes out of your mouth. Another one is you are afraid of disappointing people. So if you are a people pleaser, if you are really afraid of, hurting someone's feelings and disappointing someone, then that is another indication that you may struggle with boundaries. Another one is you're not taking care of your health. You don't make time for you. All right. So if you look at your day, or maybe you come to the end of your day and you're like, man, I took care of everybody else. I was working. I was there for my team. I was there for my kids. I was there for my husband. But then you weren't there for yourself. That is a sign that you need to have better boundaries. And then another one is you have no margin in your schedule. So if you are going from thing to thing to thing and you have no margin, you have no breaks, you have no space in between, then you need to set boundaries. So I'm going to give you some practical ways for you to start doing this today. So as I read off some of those things, if you are like, yes, Monique, I resonate with one of those things, or I resonate with all of those things, then listen up, because I'm going to just share with you some ways that you can implement this now. Because as you are growing in your leadership, you also need to recognize that the area that you are going to needs to be you operating in your zone of genius. It needs to be you operating at your highest level. And if you cannot operate well in that area, then you are going to really struggle. You are going to really struggle to be successful. You are going to really struggle to scale and to grow if you don't have the capacity right now. All right. So the very first way to set a boundary, number one, is to evaluate your calendar. Evaluate your calendar. Now, I am a Google Calendar kind of girl. And so whatever system that works for you, if you're like, I still have the old school pen and paper, or if you use an agenda book, whatever works for you. I particularly, let me tell you this. I used to be a pen and paper girl, and our assistant that has been with us for 4 years, at one point, it drove her crazy. She's like, Monique, I don't know what's going on, because if something would change, I'd have to let her know. And she said, I really need you to switch over to Google Calendar. And I resisted, okay? But I am so glad I did, because it's so easy to move things around. It's easy to color code things, but have some calendar. Most of you do this. Have some calendar and evaluate what is taking up your time. Everything should be on your calendar. Whether you have a team training, whether you are meeting with some of the leaders on your team to train them one-on-one, whether you have an opportunity event, whether it's something like your kids' field trip, every single thing needs to be on your calendar. I personally color code mine. So work things are one color, Zoom calls are one color, things involving my kids are one color, self-care is another color. Like I literally have self-care things in one particular color. So I remember to, stop and do certain things. And so evaluate your calendar. Okay. Is it really, really full, or do you have margin in there? Okay. So that's the first thing. When you evaluate your calendar, the next thing I want to encourage you to do is to create a brain dump list. Okay. Create a brain dump list. And what this means is this is everything that needs to get done. Okay. So these are the items that are listed on your calendar, the regular items that need to get done. All right. Plus the things that are on your to-do list. Okay. So if you think about that, let's say, for example, you're like trying to fall asleep and your brain will not shut off. And you're like, oh, tomorrow I need to do, this was literally me last night. I have a senior, he's about to graduate. And I want you to just imagine all the things. As I'm laying to go to bed, I'm like, oh, I forgot to order balloons for his party that's coming up. Oh, did I order the cap and gown? All these things, right? Like my brain was like thinking of all the things that needs to get done for having a senior, and it's the month of May. So anyway, my point is, what is keeping you up? Like, what are those things that your mind is like, I need to do this and this and this and this? Okay. Create one list, create one brain dump list. All right. After you do that, the next thing is to take that list, and I want you to take every single item on that list, and you are going to put it in one of 5 categories. All right. I'm going to break this down for you. The 5 categories are do, delegate, delay, delete, and automate. Okay. Do, delegate, delay, delete, and automate. So your do items, these are going to be the items that when you look at your list, these are high priority items and only you can do them. So this could be leading a team training for your team. This could be reaching out and talking about the business opportunity to someone new. This could be creating content for your social media. Only items that you can do. This can be spending time with your children. This could be spending time with your spouse. All of these things need to go in your calendar. It might seem like, oh, that's, I'll just do that whenever I have time. But if you are really being intentional and purposeful and living within your values, and let's say family is one of your values, then that needs to be in your calendar. The family time needs to be in your calendar. All right. So those are the do items. The delegate items, those are things that are of high priority, but they don't have to be done by you. This could be things like cooking dinner, cleaning your house, folding laundry, Running errands. Can you have somebody else help you out? This could also look like maybe you have multiple children and you have to be at several different places at the same time. Can you ask another mom, hey, would you mind if we carpooled? Could my son get a ride with you to practice today? And then tomorrow I'll take your kid to the game, whatever it is. Can you ask other people to come alongside you? And depending on the ages of your kids, you guys, and I've talked about this on a prior episode, but get your kids involved. My kids, since they were 7, 8, and 10, have been doing their own laundry, have been doing their own dishes, have been taking the trash out, all those things. They have learned how to do all those things. I talked about this on the homeschooling episode, so you can go back and listen to that, where I give you exact detail breakdown of all the details on that. But delegating things to your children. Can you delegate something to your husband? Maybe you cook dinner every single night and you're like, hey, can you take 1 or 2 nights where you're cooking dinner? Or maybe going to the grocery store is very time consuming and you say, you know what, I'm going to start using Instacart. Okay, if you're moving into leadership and you really have the vision of where you are growing, how you're growing in your business, where you're going in your business, then you should be able to quickly do the math and say, all right, if driving to the grocery store, grocery shopping, loading my car up, driving home, unloading my car, if that takes like 3 hours, and you did the math and said, all right, if I spent 3 hours reaching out to people about the business opportunity, which one would serve you more? And I would say that if you're doing those business tasks, that should be able to pay for itself. So use Instacart, use other services. All right, so that's delegate. All right, so do and delegate. The third one is delay. So these are items on your list that they need to get done, but they don't have a sense of urgency. Okay, so if there is something that you look at your list and you're like, okay, so for example, on my list is I need to call and make an appointment for my kids to have their, 2 of my kids need to get their wisdom teeth out. Okay, I don't have to do that today. That might be on my list today, but I could move that 3 days from now and say, all right, on Friday, I need to stop and make sure that I make that phone call. Whatever it is that you need to get done, but maybe you're looking at your list and you're like, all right, this is important, but it does not have to get done today. And so you move it to another day in your calendar. All right, so those are the delay items. And then the next one is delete. So these are items that are not urgent and they do not have to get done by you. So you might think that you are absolutely critical in the place that you volunteer. And you're like, I have been volunteering here for 8 years and they expect me to show up every Tuesday to help with XYZ. Okay. It could be that you're volunteering at your church. It could be that you are teaching, whatever, Sunday school. And please do not knock. I'm not trying to say don't do that. You should be doing good things. But sometimes in certain seasons of life, if you are looking at your life and you are feeling overwhelmed and it is keeping you from what God has called you to do, if He has called you to build your network marketing business and you are doing everything else that is taking time and volunteering here and there and going up to your kid's school and being the room mom and doing all these things, and you look up and you're like, man, I'm not accomplishing my goals, then for a season, I would really challenge you to evaluate, what do you need to give up? What do you need to delete? What do you need to remove? And that will also free you up mentally, like the mental space of all of the things that we are doing that sometimes may not be the highest priority. You need to delete them. Okay. And then the last one was automate. All right. Of that list, do, delegate, delay, delete, automate. So what automate means is, what are things that you can put on autopilot? So for example, if you are familiar with Project Broadcast is a texting service. And so maybe instead of individually doing customer care texts or reach outs, you could have it on automation where you get phone numbers and you have an automated service where, let's say, once or twice a month, you're checking in on customer care, or you're doing automated texts for your business opportunity events, or you have other things that are being automated to your team, to your customers, so that you can have a high level of communication, but every single message is not directly from you. It's not taking all that time for you to do that? Can you automate your social media posts? So that could look like you sitting down and creating a bunch of content and then scheduling different posts so that it's automated. It's not one extra thing for you to have to think about every single day. Okay. Could you do that with meals? There are things like HelloFresh or other meal services where you can automate. You don't have to think every single night, what are we having for dinner? That's like the dreaded question. What are we having for dinner tonight? Can you automate it? I know here where we live in Memphis, there are a couple places that have already made meals. And that has been a game changer for me personally in this season because I can just drive up there, pick up several meals, and then pop them in the oven. I don't have to think about making dinner. Okay. So think about that. And then as far as the next thing to do with setting boundaries, decide what are your most important priorities and be willing to say no to the rest. Okay. Lisa TerKeurst has this great book called Your Best Yes. Okay. Your Best Yes by Lisa TerKeurst. And she talks about this is really getting clear on what are your highest priority items. And we talk often, you'll hear me and Becky talk about your sacred. What are the things that are sacred to you? And it doesn't matter if it is not sacred to somebody else. So like in our home, family dinner is sacred. And I'm not scheduling a call. I'm not scheduling a training. I'm not working during that time. Like that is sacred family time. That if we can help it, okay, pending sports, etc. If we can help it, we are all together for family dinner because that's the time our family comes together. That's the time we pray together. That's the time we check in with everybody and talk about their day and ask questions and laugh. I feel like that's our family dinners, laughing. I have 3 teenage boys, so you could just imagine the stuff that is said at dinner time. Anyway, and so you decide what is it that is sacred for you, and then everything else comes after. Okay. Another way to set boundaries is create a 24-hour rule with your family. So I had to implement this several years ago because having 3 children, there would be many times where my kids, we would have a plan for the day and then at the last minute, hey mom, can we go do this? Can you take us over here? So-and-so wants us to go meet them for a movie that's, 30 minutes away. Can you drive across town to drop us off at this movie? Right. Like all these kinds of things that would come at the last minute. And I realized, I'm like, man, I am like stressed driving all over town with things that were not originally part of my plan, part of our agenda. And so I created a 24-hour rule in our home where people had to, like my children know, if you are asking to do something, that's great. I'd love for you to do something social. I'd love for you to do something with your friends, but there has to be 24-hour notice. There is no last minute, hey, can I go do this? They know, okay, if you want to go do this, you say, hey, mom, on Thursday, I'd like to go watch my friend play in their basketball game. Can I do that? Right? So that we plan ahead, we work around it, and we're not overwhelming our schedule. And something really, really, really important, I should have said this at the beginning, but something really important about boundaries that I want you to remember, okay? Y'all write this down if you're able to, or take notes in your phone. You teach people how to treat you. That is boundary setting 101. You teach people how to treat you. You teach them when you're available and when you're not. You teach them how to speak to you and how not to speak to you. You teach them how to communicate with you, via text, phone call, whatever. You dictate your availability. You dictate how long it takes to get back with someone. You dictate how people treat you. And so if you say, hey, I have a boundary where, if you want to do something, there needs to be 24-hour notice, guess what? They will respect that. They will, because they have. I set the rule and that's the rule. And so create a 24, and guess what? They will also start learning to plan ahead, right? When you say, hey, this is what's required. All right. The next one is to go to bed earlier and to wake up earlier. This seems very simple, but for a lot of you, this might be your problem. You are staying up way too late, scrolling TikTok and Instagram reels and all these other things, watching Netflix. You're like, it asks you, do you want to watch the next episode? And you click yes. When you click, when you should be clicking, no, I need to go to bed. I need to go to sleep, right? So go to bed earlier. It's very simple, but give yourself a bedtime and say, all right, I'm going to be in bed at this time. I'm going to turn my phone off. I'm going to turn all these distractions off and go to sleep. And with that, wake up earlier, because if you get up earlier and you can be focused on the things that you need to do before your entire family gets up, having your devotional time, exercising, whatever those self-care things are before your family gets up. Maybe it's getting an hour of work in. You might be working a full-time job while you're building your business. If that's the case, then how can you get an hour of work in before your family wakes up? All right. And then set boundaries with your team and well-meaning family members. So this goes back to you teach people how to treat you. If your team thinks that you are the concierge service, they are going to come to you for every little thing. If your team thinks that you are Google, they are going to ask you about every little thing. And so if you set boundaries where you teach them how to treat you, okay, if every single time they come to you and ask you a question and you say, hey, that's a great question. I am so glad that you are learning and growing. But did you see the FAQ page on the company website? Because they address that. Okay. If it's like a simple question about an order, if it's a simple question about a product, take them to the FAQ page. Hey, check out the FAQ page. They answer this. Maybe it's something that you have these answers on a team page or in a Facebook group. And you can say, hey, check out the Facebook group and see if you can find that answer. Or if you have a chat thread going for people on your team or the leaders on your team, encourage your team to utilize that before they come to you. Okay. So setting those boundaries with your team. You are not available 24 hours to your team. Okay. If they have a question, if they need something, have boundaries set on your communication with them. Yes, you want them to succeed, but you also need to recognize that if somebody has been on your team for 4 years and they're asking you about, what is the refund policy or something like that, you need to point them in the direction of where they can find that answer, right? If somebody is new, you do want to have that high level of communication with them and be available for them and answering questions. But if somebody has been there for a little bit or they're at the point where they should know where to go, you are not the Q&A person, okay? And so teaching people how to treat you, also the frequency in which you respond. If you are always responding immediately, if you have all of your notifications on, I feel like that's a whole other boundary you need to set, is turn the notifications off. Okay. So whatever, like I have all my social media notifications off. It's been that way for years. And I have to actually go into the app to see if anybody has contacted me or reached out to me. Okay. So turn notifications off and have designated time that you check email, designated time that you check Messenger, designated time that you check whatever, your Instagram, whatever the apps are. And those are the times that you respond to people. Okay. You're not available all the time. Have business hours for when you are working your business. If you have business hours, if you communicate that to your team, it could even be in your email signature that you say, hey, I work my business from Monday through Friday from this time to this time. People will know how to treat you. They will know when to contact you, when you are available. And that's one of the best things that you can do is treat your business like a business. Okay. You have to treat your business like a business. You have to recognize that you are the CEO of your business. And just because you have flexibility, it doesn't mean that you are available at all times to everyone. And so you have to put boundaries in place so that you can grow as a leader. So I hope that this blessed you. I hope that this encouraged you, and you have a wonderful day.
Thanks so much for listening to the Kingdom Minded Mompreneur. If you loved what you heard today, could you stop and give us a 5-star rating and review? It helps our visibility on podcasting platforms so others like you can hear more of this message.
Also, if this episode encouraged you, we would love for you to pass it along to your own biz bestie and anyone else who could benefit. Lastly, don't forget that if you want to hang out with us just a little bit more, join us inside the Kingdom Minded Mompreneur community. Click the link in the show notes. Bye for now.